I wasn't looking for this. Honestly, it started as just another late night in my study, sifting through dusty books and faded manuscripts, chasing shadows of the past as I often do. But nothing could have prepared me for what I stumbled across that night. A letter. A forgotten letter. And not just any letter. This one was written by the Roman governor Pontius Pilate himself. Yes, the very man who washed his hands while Jesus was led away to die. But what if I told you this letter, this ancient account, described something that's not found in any gospel, just not whispered from any pulpit, not even passed down in the dusty corners of theological tradition? What if I told you it describes Jesus's face, his eyes, his hair, the color of his beard, his expression, the way he moved, the way he made people feel when he looked at them? Would you believe me? Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. If your heart is stirred by the presence of Jesus, if you believe in his truth, his life, his sacrifice, I invite you right now to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss what's coming next, because what you're about to hear may challenge your faith and at the same time deepen it like never before. All right, let me take you back to that night. I had been researching Roman correspondence for a small presentation on imperial law. Pretty dry stuff. Until, hidden in an appendix of a half-forgotten publication, I saw the words, Pontius Pilate to Tiberius Caesar. I froze. You see, letters from Pilate are extremely rare. Most have been dismissed, lost, or buried under the weight of skepticism. But this one had a ring of truth. Not because it was sensational, but because it was deeply human. Pilate begins by describing Jesus, not as a rebel, not as a heretic, but as a man of great virtue. His words, word for word, went like this. There has appeared in these our days a man of great virtue named Jesus Christ, who is yet living among us and of the Gentiles, is accepted as a prophet of truth, but his own disciples call him the Son of God. The Son of God. And then Pilate does something remarkable. He describes Jesus's appearance, not in vague, poetic terms, but with detailed precision, like someone who had to get it right, because he was reporting to Caesar himself. I read the next line slowly, almost breathless. A man of stature, somewhat tall and comely, with a very reverend countenance, such as the beholders may both love and fear. I paused there. How many paintings, films, and sculptures have tried to guess what Jesus looked like? And here, in a forgotten Roman letter, was a first-hand account. He goes on, his hair is of the color of chestnut, full ripe, plain to his ears, whence downward it is more orient and curling and wavering about his shoulders. Can you imagine? Jesus, his hair curling around his shoulders, chestnut brown in the light of the sun. Not wild, not unkempt, but humble, dignified. His face without spot or wrinkle, beautified with a lovely red, his beard thickish, in color like his hair, not very long but forked. Even his beard is described with such care. Forked, thickish, a detail you wouldn't invent. Pilate, this Roman governor, this man who held Jesus' fate in his hands, is captivated by what he saw. And he keeps going. His eyes gray, clear, and quick. In reproving, he is terrible. In admonishing, courteous and fair-spoken, pleasant in conversation mixed with gravity. That line struck me. In reproving, he is terrible. That is, when Jesus spoke truth, it cut through you like lightning. But when he comforted, his voice was gentle, seasoned with wisdom, tender with power. And then this. It cannot be remembered that any have seen him laugh, but many have seen him weep. How do you move past a sentence like that? Even now, just thinking about it, I imagine Jesus walking the dusty roads of Galilee, burdened by the suffering around him, weeping for the brokenness of the world he came to save. Dear listener, if this is moving your heart, let me encourage you again. Subscribe to this channel. Share it. Let others who believe, who ache for Jesus, hear this too. You see, what I read that night didn't just add to my knowledge of Christ. It shook me to my soul. Because as the letter unfolds, Pilate isn't just describing a man, he's grappling with something divine, something holy, something he didn't understand but couldn't deny. He even records what Jesus said to him. When Pilate asked if he was a god, Jesus answered, Thou sayest it, for I am the truth and the life. I am the good shepherd, the door. Pilate, a Roman politician, probably had no clue what that meant. But you and I, we know. And this is just the beginning. Because what happens next, the signs, the darkness, the trembling of the earth at the moment of the crucifixion, Pilate witnessed it all, and what he writes, what he confesses, is nothing short of astonishing. But I'll save that for what comes next. Stay with me, keep your heart open, because the truth of who Jesus is, how he looked, how he lived, how he moved, even the most hardened hearts, is about to unfold before us in a way that history tried to bury but could not silence. Share and subscribe, because what we've uncovered is only part of the story. I couldn't sleep. That letter, those words, they echoed in my soul long after I closed the book. But what struck me most wasn't just how Pilate described Jesus, it was how troubled he was by him. This wasn't a man writing a routine report to his emperor. This was someone haunted by what he had seen, someone grasping for understanding, or maybe redemption, because what Pilate says next in the letter took me completely off guard. Among the various rumors that came to my ears, there was one that attracted my attention in particular. A young man had appeared in Galilee, preaching with a noble unction, a new law, in the name of the gods that had sent him. Pilate had heard about Jesus long before the trial. He had his eyes on him, but, and this part gives me chills, he saw Jesus once, in passing, in a crowd. And this is what he wrote. One day, in passing by the place of Siloam, where there was a great concourse of people, I observed in the midst of the group a young man who was leaning against a tree, calmly addressing the multitude. I was told it was Jesus. And then Pilate writes something I'll never forget. So great was the difference between him and those who were listening to him. Can you picture it? A dusty street, a restless crowd, the noise of the city humming behind them. But there, in the middle of it all, a man, calm, radiant, different. Pilate said Jesus had golden-colored hair. His beard was the same hue, his skin fairer than the sunburnt crowd around him, his countenance serene. Never have I seen a sweeter or more serene countenance. I had to pause there. Because whether chestnut or golden, what matters isn't just the color. It's the light Pilate saw on his face, a presence unlike any other. Friend, if this touches your heart like it did mine, please take a moment and subscribe to this channel. Share this message. Let others know Jesus was not a myth, not a story. He was real, seen, heard, remembered. Now here's where it gets even more compelling. Pilate didn't speak to Jesus that day. He didn't want to disturb the scene, but he sent his secretary, a man named Manlius, to listen. Manlius was no ordinary scribe. He was from Judea, fluent in Hebrew, and deeply loyal to Pilate. And when he returned, he was shaken. He told Pilate what Jesus had said to the crowd that day at Siloam, and among his words was a phrase you've heard before but maybe never realized where it was first heard. Render unto Caesar the things which belong to Caesar, and unto God the things that are God's. Pilate was stunned. Never have I heard in the works of the philosophers anything that can compare to the maxims of Jesus. Let that sink in. The wisdom of Socrates, Plato, Seneca, none of them, Pilate said, could hold a candle to Jesus. This wasn't the account of a believer. Pilate was not a follower of Christ. He was at best an outsider, at worst a man who chose convenience over justice, and still, he was moved. But the freedom Pilate allowed Jesus to enjoy, it didn't sit well with others. The poor loved him, but the rich and powerful, they plotted. It's always like that, isn't it? The hungry cling to the truth. The proud, they fear it. Pilate records Jesus' sharp words to the Pharisees. You are a race of vipers. You resemble painted sepulchres. He didn't flatter the powerful. He spoke directly to their hypocrisy. And for that, they wanted him dead. The complaints began to pour into the praetorium. Rumors swirled. Threats were made. Some even warned Pilate that if he refused to act, they would appeal directly to Caesar himself. That was the tipping point. Pilate was in a fragile position. He had only a single centurion and a handful of soldiers at his command in Jerusalem. Reinforcements were promised, but hadn't yet come. He feared revolt, so he made a choice, a cowardly choice, a political choice. Being too weak to suppress a sedition, I resolved upon adopting a measure that promised to establish the tranquility of the city. He chose peace over truth. He chose survival over justice. Dear friend, can you feel the weight of that? How many times in history, how many times in our own lives, have we watched the innocent be sacrificed for the comfort of the powerful? But Pilate didn't want to kill Jesus. That much is clear in his letter. In fact, in one line, his words tremble with guilt. When my mind was troubled, I hastened to take water and wash my hands of the blood of this just person, the like of whom hath never been before. He knew. He knew Jesus was no ordinary man. He knew something divine had walked among them, and yet he caved. Not because he wanted to, but because he was afraid. And if you think that's the end of the letter, it's not even close. Because what Pilate describes next, what he claims happened at the very hour Jesus was crucified, is absolutely chilling. There was darkness over all the world, the sun being darkened at midday, the stars appearing in their brightness, the moon, as if turned into blood, failed in her light, and the dead that lay in their graves rose and appeared unto many. Let me repeat that. The dead rose and appeared unto many. This is not from the Gospels. This is from a Roman official, a man with no reason to lie, a man who wasn't trying to preach, he was trying to explain to Caesar what had just happened under his watch. Pilate's words aren't just historical, they're a confession. He saw something he couldn't explain. He felt something he couldn't silence, and years later, he still couldn't shake it. Friend, we live in a world that constantly tries to make Jesus small, symbolic, safe. But Jesus wasn't safe. He was dangerous to the proud, comfort to the broken, and power to the meek. If your spirit is stirred, please subscribe, like, and share this message. We're not done yet, because there is still one more piece of evidence, one last confirmation that the man Pilate described, the one whose eyes could pierce the soul and whose voice could still a storm, truly lived. And it wasn't found in a book, but carved in stone. Some stories fade with time. Others are buried on purpose. But what if I told you that centuries after Pontius Pilate washed his hands and sealed his fate, something was found? Not a manuscript, not a rumor, but a stone, an actual physical stone, carved with the name of the very man who sent Jesus to the cross. I remember the moment I first saw the photo. I was scrolling through articles on biblical archaeology when 3 words nearly made my heart stop. Pilate inscription found. I sat up, clicked, zoomed in, and there it was. Clear, undeniable, etched in ancient Latin, Pontius Pilatus, prefect of Judea. Chills ran down my arms. For centuries, skeptics claimed Pontius Pilate was a fictional character, some literary scapegoat invented by the gospel writers. But now, in stone, buried under centuries of dust and denial, was proof that he was real. And not just real, but exactly where Scripture said he would be. The stone had been discovered near Caesarea Maritima, an ancient city along the Mediterranean coast of Israel. Once a grand Roman port, it was also the administrative center of Judea during Pilate's time. Ironically, this wasn't some grand monument. No, this stone had been reused. It had been built into the steps of an old theater, turned upside down, as if history itself had tried to bury the truth beneath its feet. But truth, you see, has a way of rising again. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this channel. This is what we do here. We uncover what's been hidden. We bring light to what the world has tried to forget. And most of all, we lift up the name of Jesus, the one who cannot be erased. Let's talk about what this stone means. In archaeology, this is what's called a primary source. It's not a legend, not hearsay. It's an artifact, carved in Pilate's lifetime, publicly proclaiming his position. It reads, "To the Divine Augusti Tiberium Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea." The Divine Augusti, that's a dedication to the Roman emperor who was often considered divine. Pilate was honoring his emperor, but in doing so, he unknowingly left us a trail, a stone witness to the existence of a man who tried to wash his hands of eternity. Now, when we put the letter of Pilate next to the stone of Pilate, something remarkable begins to happen. The man who once feared an uprising, the man who gave in to political pressure, the man who saw the Son of God face to face and let him die, suddenly becomes a witness, a reluctant witness, a tormented witness, but a witness nonetheless. Pilate's letter to Caesar, read today, doesn't sound like someone defending himself. It sounds like someone confessing, not because he had to, but because something in him wouldn't let him forget. Let me read you one more line from the letter. "I am almost ready to say, cursed be the day that I succeeded Valerius Gratus in the government of Judea." Cursed be the day. He knew what he had done, and maybe he knew who he had done it to. Friend, let me ask you something. Have you ever stood at a crossroads like that? Have you ever been face to face with truth but walked away? Have you ever, like Pilate, tried to wash your hands of guilt only to find that guilt still clinging to your soul? If so, I have good news. Because unlike Pilate, you still have time. You can still choose. You can still believe. You can still follow the one who stood silent before his accusers, who forgave those who nailed him, and who rose again to offer life to anyone, yes, even to those who once denied him. This isn't just about history. This is about you. It's about the God who took on flesh, walked among us, and left such an impression that even the Roman who condemned him could not stop thinking about him. It's about the Savior whose face was unforgettable, whose voice shook the hearts of governors, and whose presence couldn't be erased from stone. The world has tried to distort him, to tame him, to explain him away. But Pilate's words remain. The stone remains. And more importantly, Jesus remains. So what will you do with this truth? Will you walk away like the crowds? Will you bow like the centurion at the cross? Or will you, like Pilate, stand torn between fear and faith? If this message stirred your heart, I invite you once more. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to the truth, to the journey of discovering more about the one who changed the world and who wants to change your life. Like Pilate, you have a choice. But unlike Pilate, you don't have to carry regret. You can carry grace right here, right now. Because the face that Pilate saw, the eyes that were gray, clear and quick, the mouth that never lied, the heart that never failed, is still looking for you. And he's calling you home. Thank you for watching. If this story blessed you, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment about what part touched you the most. You never know, your words may lead someone else to the truth. Until next time, God bless you, and may the face of Jesus shine upon you.